Okay, YouTube, so as you can see, the plaster is dried. I put the first coat of paint on it. There are just some little spots that need touching up, just the little white spots, so I'll do that now. I've got my wet water, my Mod Podge mix, and then in here I have all my supplies, different color paints, all the different earth blends, grass, gravel, all that kind of stuff. So this is what we're going to do now. I'm going to just set this up and I'll try to do this quickly. It's hot out here, but I just want to show, basically just show you guys how to do this. So with the paint, when you paint it, you don't need to wait for the paint to dry to start throwing the turf on it. Now, I'm not going to put much on there because I just want to get enough of it onto the brush that I can dab the little white spots. Because really what they are, they're just the little nooks and crannies where the paint didn't get down. And sometimes they're really tricky to get. I just tore off a big piece of. Yeah, these little hills haven't fully set. So if the paint's wet, you can start throwing down the turf. The paint black is a bonding agent. I'm gonna for the sake of just saving time, I'm going to just start. I'll just try to cover up those little white spots as best I can with with the ground. All right, so with Mod Podge, you want to use a matte finish. Definitely don't use the gloss, whatever you do. I am going to let that dry a little bit since I am going to use the Mod Podge. And while I do that, I'll show you guys the different things that I'm going to use. So this was acquired for the last one that I did. You can see I used barely any of it. This is Woodland Scenic Blended Turf. It's an earth blend, so it's more of a brown than a green. I have here some regular sand. It's pretty fine. And then here in this little ground mustard shaker, I have gravel. It's a Woodland Scenics gravel mix. It's good for gravel roads, rocky parts of your diorama. So it's real simple from here. It's important though that you have your wet water and your Mod Podge spray, because that is what is going to bond everything to the layout. If you just put the earth down and then spray the glue on top, you're just going to form a crust on top. And then if you're setting your cars on it, if that surface breaks away, it's going to start flaking the whole thing apart. So what wet water does, by the way, wet water is just water with a couple of drops of dish soap. And it breaks down the surface tension so that rather than if you just took regular water and sprayed it on the surface, it's going to bead up on the surface. But when you add the dish soap, it by breaking down the surface tension, it soaks it down all the way through whatever terrain you have to the ground. And then when you spray your Mod Podge, it'll soak all of that all the way down through it to the ground, so you're not just crusting the top. So that's why that's important. And just waiting on these areas to dry, but I think we're pretty much good to go. I'll start on this end, and basically we're just going to cover this entire thing with Mod Podge. Now, Mod Podge, it's a pretty hot day out, so I probably have a little bit less time than normal, but typically you do have a little bit of working time. I know a lot of people would water their Mod Podge down before doing this, just because you get better coverage. And maybe I should have done that, but I have a little bit more Mod Podge that I can use if I need to. Basically, you just want to cover any area where you plan on having dirt or grass. You want to get covered. So in this case, I want full coverage, and as I can see, that's not enough, so I'll get my other bottle out here. It's about time for some more Mod Podge. Get that before it runs off. Alright, so all we're doing here is just trying to create a tacky surface. And I think we've accomplished that. Alright, and maybe try, sometimes hard to get the paint streaks out of it, but I think you want to try as best you can. Sometimes the stippling motion is a little bit better. Alright, so that's a good tacky surface to work with. Alright, let's see if I can prop this up. Now, it's the fun part. I like to start with the gravel. And I'm basically going to do a gravel trail all the way across this. Let's see what else we got here. Stand by. Stand by just a moment. Alright, so for the sand, thought I had a spoon out here, but I don't. For the sand, I'm just going to use just a spoon. Now you want to try and get as even a coverage as you can. Like what I did there is not ideal. So I think that's a pretty good start for a pretty good base. Now, this part here is going to be more of a turf look. It's kind of tricky when you got a little bit of a breeze. That's why if you can do this inside, you definitely should, because working out in the elements can be tricky. But I don't worry too much about covering the gravel because I can go back over it. But what I do want, I want to try and get good coverage, because I know that the paint job wasn't the most ideal. So this is basically just a real fine foam. It's a real fine green foam. Alright, so that's pretty good there. I was kind of hoping along this edge to do that as well. That's going to be very tricky. I'm not sure really the best way to do that. I need to wet that with glue. As you can see, my working time has already pretty well expired from the original layer of glue that I put down. So now I'm just trying to add more. Because this is all going to be green earth turf along that part of it. So unfortunately there will be some waste. There are methods you can use to prevent that waste, to catch your overspill. But the other thing about this is a little bit goes a long way, and it's really not that expensive. So that's kind of basically a general first layer. You can see we've got the grass, we've got a couple of little hilly areas, and then we have basically the base of a dirt trail going across it. So now the thing that we need to do is we need to build up the detail in the dirt trail. And to do that, I have some different things. I think the most important and probably thing that I'll utilize the most is going to be basically like river rock. It's like just it's not gravel, it's much bigger. I know you can't see it in this bag, but Woodland Scenics, and it's basically river rocks. So what I'm going to do, now that I've showed you guys how to get a base down, the video is going to get too long if I start detailing it, so I'm going to turn the video off, and I'm going to add some of the detail, add more of the trail, and then I'll come back and show you when it's done. So, but that's basically the gist of it. That's really all there is to it, to getting a base down. You can see it's all basically grass and dirt at this point. Now, I will need to seal it, so when I come back to do that, I'll show you how to do that. It's real easy, because right now this is all, not all of it's going to stick. So Anyways, that's it for this one, and I will talk at you soon.